Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you guys are. Thanks for joining us in another episode of IndustryConnex, our podcast where we connect our industry people to each other around the world. Today, I've got another special guest joining us all the way from UK. As you can see, we've got Mr. Richard Parker here with us today. So welcome, Richard, to our IndustryConnex podcast. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks very much, Deepak. A pleasure to be here.
So, Richard, I mentioned that you're from UK. Tell us more about you. Where are you based? Where exactly are you in UK?
I'm based in Sheffield, which, for those of you that don't know where that is, it's kind of geographically central to England. So, pretty much in the middle of the country, about as far away from the sea as you can get. It's in Yorkshire, which is some people say it's a country within a country. Quite a distinct culture specific to Yorkshire. So that's where Sheffield is.
Oh, cool. I was actually about to ask, so how far from the ocean you are? You just answered that. So I take it that you're not really a sea person or a beach person then.
Well, I'm not from Sheffield. I didn't grow up here. I'm not a Yorkshireman. I grew up on the south coast of England, near Portsmouth. So I was kind of near the sea. But even then, I was never a sailor. Occasionally went to the beach, but that's about the extent of it. Yeah, definitely a landlubber.
So we normally say that there are two types of people, ocean people or mountain people. So I take it then you're the mountain people.
Well, I'm not much of a skier either. I went once or twice and found it all a bit too stressful. So a flatlander, whatever that is.
Well, so today we find out that there is third type of people as well.
That's right.
Cool.
That's right.
So tell us more about yourself, Richard. What's your passion? What do you like doing in your free time?
In my free time, I'm doing some sort of sporting activity, and that would be either sort of playing sports or watching sports, or trying to encourage my two boys to get into sports, and that's pretty well it really. So play a bunch of different sports, so golf and squash. Watch just about anything, and yeah, trying to encourage my boys to get into that whole thing as well. So taking them to football and whatnot. So yeah, outside of work, it's really that's my main focus and passion.
So that's what I was about to ask. Obviously, growing up in UK, you must love your soccer and you must love your cricket. I was the same growing up in India. Yeah, growing up in India, it was mainly about cricket. So there was a time in my life, Richard, I
Absolutely,
could
yeah.
sit and watch every single ball of a test match, which for people who don't know what test match is, it goes over 5 days. And chances are that after 5 days, there would be no result in the game. And there was a time in my life because I used to play cricket. I still play cricket for a local club here. But growing up, because I used to play a lot of cricket, I could sit down and watch every single ball of a test match.
No trouble at all. I'll do the same. I actually was at Lord's last Friday for it was the third day of the England-India Test match, and fantastic day.
And how about soccer? Do you play soccer as well?
Yeah, so I play a bit. Obviously, I work at Autodesk, and one of the great events that Autodesk puts on every year is a soccer tournament where offices from all over the world will put together teams, and all get together it varies by country each year, and have a big soccer tournament. So my soccer is geared around that. Used to play a lot with work.
Yep.
That's all died down because of COVID. And then yeah, have the occasional game of football as well. Yeah,
Fantastic.
and that's on my list of sports to watch as
Fantastic.
well. So I support Tottenham and spend a fair bit of time lying on my sofa watching them, or in the pub if it's not on my pay-per-view channel.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, we're going to talk about your role at Autodesk in a sec, but before we do that, I just wanted to talk about some other casual stuff. Uh, so you
Sure.
guys are not in lockdown anymore, are you?
The UK came out of lockdown 5 or 6 weeks ago.
Oh, you're right.
Um,
So are you guys allowed to travel now?
For work, there are still restrictions on travel. Outside of work, then we can travel sort of unrestricted within the UK.
Okay.
There are various, it's a sort of color coding system, green, amber, red, if you're traveling
Oh, yeah.
abroad, with different restrictions depending on the country.
I think that's what they're talking about
Yeah.
here as well. Once you get your jobs, they'll have like a travel passport or something. But as I said, we were absolutely fine till June. I was able to travel to Brisbane and Melbourne for work. Melbourne used to be my second home. And as a matter of fact, you talked about soccer. So in Melbourne, people in the architecture industry, they've got their soccer league. And Melbourne being such a multicultural
Okay.
society, there are a lot of Europeans and a lot of South Americans and so on. And we sponsor
Sure.
one of the teams. There's about six, seven of our customers that have teams in that tournament, but it gets really competitive. So it's not like one of those fun games. It gets really competitive.
Ah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Autodesk soccer tournament gets seriously competitive. It's his colleagues taking each other out, studs up. Yeah, I think sometimes you can't help yourself when it's the heat of battle. Yeah, all good fun, all good fun.
Yeah, I'm the same because growing up, and even now, as I said, I play a lot of sport even now, and my son plays a lot of sport as well. And we are pretty competitive. I've got a 10-year-old son, and we are pretty
Okay.
competitive. And he does not miss an opportunity to remind me that he beats me in basketball every time. We've got a little basketball ring
Oh,
in the
really?
backyard, and
Okay.
he beats me pretty bad. And every time
Good
he would take the
going.
opportunity to
Yeah.
remind me that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine are 5 and 7. So fortunately, they're not beating me at anything yet, but I'm sure it won't be long.
So you mentioned that you work for Autodesk. Tell us more about your role at Autodesk and how long have you been with Autodesk for?
Yeah, I joined Autodesk actually 13 years ago, which I was told the other day, which surprised me. So I'm not sure if that means this is going to be an auspicious
Oh
year
well,
or
13 is a
not.
lucky number.
Um, yeah, and my current role is I'm a director of product management in the Autodesk Construction Solutions group. So I look after a number of products. Specifically, I look after Navisworks, BIM 360 Glue, model coordination, design collaboration, our issues integrations into the desktop with Revit and Navisworks, and our BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate
Fantastic.
Pro offerings, which are really a collection of maybe a dozen products. I don't. Various
Yeah.
teams are looking after the specific products, but I have a responsibility for the collection. So yeah, quite a broad range of products, all sort of within the area of sort of multidiscipline BIM collaboration, teams pulling their data together into a single environment to understand how they're going to build things, constructability, coordination, those types of issues. Yeah, and obviously I have a team of product managers that I work with to support those products.
Yeah, a lot of people who know me know this, that that's pretty much my bread and butter as well. I do a lot of model coordination stuff as well. As a matter of fact, just this morning or this afternoon, I was doing a presentation at an event, and on Monday also I did a presentation at an event where where I presented model coordination. So yeah, now that's my bread and butter as well, and plus BIM
Okay.
Collaborate Pro.
Okay.
So
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. We've known each other for many years, Deepak, and I know your passion. You were
well,
indeed the
we'll
guy
come
that
to
wrote the
all that as
book.
well. We'll come to
So
Navisworks and all. But I just want to ask you this question: are you presenting any session at AU again this year?
I'm not this year. I did last
Yep.
year, and it's obviously very different.
Yep.
AU doing it virtually. Um, one of the great joys of working for Autodesk is AU every year and being able to go to meet 10,000 customers in person and spend a lot of time discussing, giving presentations, meeting people afterwards, socializing, finding out what it's just
Yep.
a truly great event. Very different in a virtual environment, and good and
Yep.
useful, but obviously not getting the same direct engagement with customers. Yeah, this year I'm not pulling a class together. A couple of my colleagues, Paul
Yeah.
Walker
So the
and
reason
Marco
I bring this
Romola.
up is last year I was about to get into the car to go to work. So that was morning my time. And it was pretty late Richard's time. And I got a message on Slack from him saying, can you actually have a look at my class? Because apparently one of the mentors need to review the class. The position you are at, you actually did not have to do that. You did not have to work that late putting together a class for AU. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that AU is something that all of us are so passionate about. We want to put together the best classes, we want to deliver the best sessions and so on. And as I mentioned this to Janice, that somebody in Richard Parker's position who's like director of product development, that person does not need to work at 11 in the night trying to put together a class for AU. So it's hats off to this AU culture that we've got. And it's not only just non-Autodeskers, even Autodeskers are treated exactly the same when it comes to AU.
Oh no, well, thanks for all your help in helping me get it over the line. It was, um, yeah, it was quite something pulling that together. But yeah, I'm glad we did it. Glad we did it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fantastic event, and it's also what's happened in recent years is we're seeing the regional events as well. So there were obviously prior to lockdown, two or three London events. I'm not sure if you made it to those, Deepak, but they were awesome as well. And I know we're trying to recreate those virtually as well. So it's great to see the spirit of AU continuing in the constraints that we have around large group meeting and travel and
Exactly.
those types of things.
Actually, it's funny you should say that. I have never been to AU London. As a matter of fact, I have never been to Europe. I was counting the other day, I've been
Oh,
to
okay.
quite a few number of countries, but I've never been to Europe. The closest I got to actually traveling to
Okay.
Europe was a few years back. I got this call from a shipbuilding company in the Netherlands, and they wanted me to come over and do some Navisworks training for them. So, but that didn't go through.
Okay.
So that was the closest I actually came to traveling to Europe. But my plan is to travel to Europe, but I want to go there for like about 6 weeks, hire a car or something, and travel around. But
Yeah, quite a trek. And if you're going to come from Australia or travel in either direction, then yes, spending a week
it is, it
is
is.
a tough
This
ask.
actually leads me to my next question. We were talking about Navisworks, and you earlier mentioned that you've known me for a while. We've both known each other for a few years now. So, just for our viewers and listeners, how I came to know about Richard was when I started getting into Navisworks, when I started writing the book. I needed some help, and that's how I came to know about Richard. So, Richard, tell us your history with Navisworks. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. So I joined Autodesk pretty well immediately after the acquisition of Navisworks. So I was not one of those that built the product and the company prior to the acquisition. I'm sure you know my colleagues, Paul Walker, Peter Thompson, Tim Wiegand, Lee Mullin, obviously all there from the earliest days. I was one of those that joined after much of the heavy lifting of Navisworks had been done. So, uh, yeah, I was previously working for a construction software vendor before joining Autodesk. This was today it would be called a CDE vendor. Back then it was an extranet vendor. It was called BIW. It was one of the UK's larger extranet vendors, along with 4Projects and Asite, for those that are familiar with those products. So I was, pretty steeped in the whole cloud collaboration, construction management part of our industry. And the opportunity came up to take on the PM role for Navisworks. Which, a bit of a departure, going from a sort of cloud environment to Navisworks, as it was then, a sort of boxed desktop product. But obviously Navisworks heavily BIM centric, all about models. Back then, which was sort of 2007, 2008, much of the extranet environment was 2D and sheet based, and it was about sharing PDFs. So it was quite a nice intersection of going from a cloud-centric environment to a BIM-centric environment. Anyway, the company that I did work for, BIW, um, ended up getting acquired. That company then got acquired, and then that company got acquired. I think it when BIW got acquired by Conject got acquired by Aconex, and Aconex got acquired by Oracle. So I still have many colleagues, that I worked with back in the day. We were a kind of startup that are now, gone from us as a 20, 30 person startup, now working at Oracle, very much at the other end of the spectrum. But much of that product, is still out there. Um, yeah, that was my sort of
Wow.
path to.
So I was always under the impression that you came with the original acquisition because I obviously I know about Peter Thompson, and I knew Lee and Paul Walker, and I thought you also came with the original acquisition. I didn't know that. Well, you get to learn something new every day, eh? Yeah. And I remember at that time there was this lady Susan Tate. She helped me quite a bit as well. Well,
Sue is still here. Yeah, absolutely. So Sue is leading much of the recent work that we're doing to integrate into the desktop with our Revit issues plugins. That's Sue's current focus. But yeah, I mean, I would say most, the vast majority
awesome.
of the original Navisworks team are still at Autodesk. And as well as making sure that Navisworks
Yep.
continues to be successful, that same team are now building out model coordination. They're taking
Yep.
and associated products. They're taking the skills that they have in the built up in developing Navisworks around model aggregation and BIM collaboration, and they're deploying them in a cloud environment.
That's fantastic. I must say, Issues plugin is absolutely sensational. And when this was originally released, I remember I created a LinkedIn post and I mentioned that this is an absolute game changer for the industry.
Yeah, very important. I would say missing workflow that sort of we weren't offering a year or two back. Obviously, I would say it's early days for us in that space. I think it was only 7 or 8 months ago that we launched the Issues plugin, and there are partners and vendors that have been doing that for 7, 8, 9 years. So to some extent we're playing catch up, but we're fully committed to it's a big topic in its own right, but we're fully committed to better integrating our desktop products, our desktop design content products with the cloud and our construction solutions. And yeah, the round trip
Exactly.
issues
Exactly.
workflow is a super important
Yeah.
component. And yeah, great that we're now investing in that, and we're going to see a lot of movement
Yeah.
there, I think.
You pretty much obviously you live and breathe that, so you've nailed it on the head. But that's what I always say, that it needs to be a closed loop workflow. So a place where you create issues, a place where you can review issues, and then those issues should be able to be downloaded in the authoring tool where you are making changes, then review it and then change it again. So it needs to be a closed loop, as you said, the full round tripping. So, but yeah, this
Yeah,
podcast I try to avoid getting too deep into technology because this is all about having fun. So,
sure.
so but now it's like as you said, it's one of those things that when you live and breathe that kind of stuff, it just comes out in every conversation.
That is right. It's
Difficult not to
difficult
talk
not to
about it.
talk about it,
100%. I totally
particularly
agree. Yeah,
two
yeah.
of us get
So
together.
you
Yeah.
mentioned that you've got two boys, 5 and 7. So, and they obviously you make sure that they play some sport and so on as well. So, as a family, if you need to travel somewhere, what would be the next destination you want to go on holidays?
Um, Anywhere at the moment, anywhere out of the UK, because it's like we're unable to do so. But we just actually just last week we were on holiday, and we stayed with my parents. So it's sort of back home to stay with the boys' grandparents for a week or two, which is not what we would normally do on a summer holiday. But given the fact that my grandparents haven't seen the boys for an extended period because of the lockdown, it was a really nice trip, and um, it was, yeah, a really nice week. But generally we would go abroad. So we typically would drive down to Dover, get the ferry, and
Oh, that's
go and
fantastic.
stay somewhere in France, travel around France. Yeah, that's what we would typically do. They're at the age now where going on planes is manageable. So we've occasionally
Nice.
flown to Spain, a bit further afield, to get some sun
Yep.
because there's not much of that happening at the moment. So yeah, sort of holidaying around Europe is the normal form.
Yeah. So have you ever taken them to Vegas yet, or not?
No, no. My wife has never been to Vegas either. Just I was, for whatever reason, calculated the other day, based on time spent at AU's, time spent at one team conferences, spent more than a quarter of a year in Las Vegas personally,
Wow.
which is a bit mind-boggling, really. I think it's probably too much of one person's life to spend in Vegas. But, yeah, not something I not something I anticipated. But yeah, obviously AU's moving on from Vegas, so we're going to be spending less time there in future. But you grow to love the place. I know you grow dependent on it, or you grow to love it. But it's quite a place, Vegas.
But it's really hard for you guys. So I know some Autodeskers. So AU, I'm pretty sure everybody knows about AU, but it's normally on Tuesdays, Wednesday, Thursday, so 3 days of AU. But I've met some Autodeskers who would get there the Saturday before and would not have the chance to go out of the hotel till the end of AU. So 7, 8 days within the hotel and not getting fresh air. So I've actually met quite a few Autodeskers who've actually been in that situation. So it's really hard for you guys.
Yeah, I would definitely fall into that category. You just need a very good stick of lip
Yeah,
salve to deal with the aircon effects of the body.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
There was one year where we ended up staying in one of the newer hotels. I think it's called the Aria, and it actually had an opening window, which was just the idea that you would be able to open a window in Vegas and get fresh air into your room is quite something that was. But since then I think we were back in uh, Venetian or similar, where it's all hermetically sealed. You don't get that luxury.
Yeah, it used to be between Mandalay Bay and Venetian Palazzo. It
Yeah,
used to
that's
alternate.
right.
But I reckon about what
Yeah,
6 years back or 7 years back, Orders had 5 years contract with
yeah.
Venetian Palazzo. So yeah, but you're right. It's one of those places you actually either get used to it and you start loving it, or you just can't handle it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely have very, very fond memories of Vegas. I think we had one more year there, maybe two. Although,
I think you're right, we had one more year there, which was supposed to be 2020.
okay,
So obviously that
right.
didn't happen. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure about the future. So have you ever been to Australia?
I have not yet been to
Oh,
Australia.
come on, seriously?
I know. Well, you've not been to the UK, Deepak, so
Well, well, yeah, that's right. But my company
yeah,
doesn't have an office in UK. Your company does have an office in Australia. So,
that's true. That's true. No, it's on my places to go. I used to live in Singapore. I lived in Singapore for a year,
oh
and that
wow,
would have been
interesting.
a good that would have presented a good opportunity to go, but I never made it during that year, unfortunately.
Well, so now the good thing is once the things settle down, you'll be able to come here. So maybe this should be your next destination.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So we're going to change the gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about you and your role. So what does it mean to be involved in product management? So you are the director of product management at Ordis. What does it mean to be involved in all that?
As a product manager, the reason that I love the job so much, you're at the intersection of pretty well all aspects of the business. So, as part of your role, you are engaging with all of the major components of a business. You're obviously engaging with customers and users, and we spend, a large proportion of our time talking to customers, finding out what they're thinking, what do they need us to do, what's happening in the industry. You're working with the engineering and the technical teams, where much of your time is spent conveying what the customers are telling you back to those technical folk in a way that they can consume it to generate code. And that's an important part of the skill set. You're also engaging with our marketing teams, so it's important that the stuff that the engineers are doing, that the reasons that they're doing it and the value that it can bring is communicated back to our customers. So lots of engagement with the marketing team, lots of engagement with our sales teams, ensuring that what we're delivering is what their customers need and that they can clearly express the value that we're delivering to their customers. So to me, that's why I love the job. You are engaging with, I wouldn't say all, but most aspects of Autodesk and the industry. And there's, that's not true of many jobs. Many jobs you're a specialist and you get very good at one particular aspect. But in product management, you have the opportunity or the luxury, I would say, to be able to engage on a whole bunch of different levels with different people, with different points of view. So you really are at the intersection. And I would say that that's true for all levels of product managers. I started as a junior PM in my previous company, and obviously as you build your experience and build your knowledge, you take on more responsibility. But that sort of the nature of being able to interact with a whole bunch of people is still there, and is still there at director level as it was when I started. And I think what you're trying to do as a product manager is take all of these various inputs and sort of synthesize them into a product strategy, a product direction, and a product set of priorities. Because I think ultimately that's what you're measured by, is the quality and the success of your products. So the skill of product management is taking all of these various, often competing inputs that you're getting from different parts of your business, from your customer base, and figuring out what the correct path is. And that's very much the skill, is being able to pick the sort of the really valuable and insightful content that you're exposed to, and use that to build really successful products.
This is actually a really good point that you made. So that being a product manager, you actually do get to visit customers, listen to their needs and requirements, but you also need to prioritize, because there's only so much you can do in a software in one go. So prioritizing things and so on, which is an important part. So that's actually really good.
Absolutely. So we spend an awful lot of time talking with customers and talking with users and understanding their requirements and factoring them into our planning and prioritizing them. I think that's obviously a super important part of the role that we undertake. I think as well as that direct engagement with customers, you need to sort of layer on sort of broader strategic intents that the business has. And the very clear example I would give you for this is the transition that Autodesk made from being a desktop software vendor to a cloud software vendor. And that process started 8 or 9 years ago. And up to that point, Navisworks was a pure box product, and we would ship out boxes every year, and there was no cloud component to that. But when Autodesk as a business, in common with many other software vendors, looked at the shifting technology, shifts in how people build software, and saw the importance and the opportunity that the cloud provided, then we made a strategic shift in that direction. And as a product manager for Navisworks, I then need to look at our resources and make some decisions. Super important that we continue to invest in Navisworks and respond to customer feedback and build the features and extend that product. At the same time, we need to start leveraging the cloud, because that's going to bring a whole bunch of advantages to customers as well. And when we start plugging Navisworks into the cloud, then people can collaborate better, and people can share information better. People can get real-time updates better. And whilst at least back then, those were not we weren't getting many requests in that regard, because kind of people weren't thinking in that direction to a large extent. So that's the balance, is to keep moving forward and keep shifting as technology shifts, because there's all of these opportunities that are emerging as technology is evolving, and at the same time responding to the immediate needs of customers who are under pressure in their projects and are really feeling the heat because they need to build a building. So it's getting that balance, I think, that's important.
100%. You actually again nailed it on the head. I remember the BIM 360 Glue plugin with Navisworks. That, I reckon, was one of the best workflows with gluing the models from your authoring tools like Revit or AutoCAD products straight onto Glue, and then federating them in Navisworks. So that plugin worked so well. But I reckon the only issue was it was a bit too early for a lot of people to think about cloud technology. And I still remember I used to go and talk about cloud technology, and people would say, but we don't want to put our models on the cloud. What about the security and so on? And then I used to ask them, how do you do your banking? And they would say, oh, I would just go to the app. And I would ask them, where's all that stuff sitting if you're using the app? I reckon it was that one of those times when people were still a bit reluctant to use cloud technology. But other than that, the cloud workflow was fantastic with BIM 360 Glue and Navisworks.
Glue was a great product and has been very successful, and opened up a whole bunch of workflows for our Navisworks customer base that have driven a whole bunch of improvement in workflows around coordination and teams working together more effectively. The challenge that we had with Glue is that it wasn't connected to a broader platform. So Glue is something of a kind of standalone product. Glue exists within its own right. But what we're really focused on at Autodesk is building a platform that connects all phases of the project, from design through pre-construction into construction. Which is why increasingly what we're doing is we're focusing on model coordination as being a tool that's going to deliver similar workflows to those which Glue delivers, but does it in a way that's fully integrated with all of the other tool sets that we're building to support builders. Obviously, model coordination is.
I remember you mentioned this to me about 4 years back at AU. We had this discussion about the Glue plugin and the similar workflow, and I remember must have been at least 4 years back, and you mentioned that there would be a very similar workflow coming with the next gen platform as well. I still remember that. Fantastic. All right.
Yes.
So now
That's
I'm
right.
going to ask you an interesting question. So I want to find out, where do you think is the construction industry going in next 5 years?
I think what we're going to see is increasing automation of a whole bunch of activities that people are undertaking today. And I think this, much of this is part of that transition from a sort of desktop-centric view of the world to a connected desktop and cloud view of the world. And what we're seeing is, as more and more information is being shared via cloud services, what we can start to do is start to analyze and manipulate and optimize that data that is pushed up and shared in the cloud, so that many of the activities that are currently being undertaken manually on a desktop machine can be automated. The system can start to do many of those things. So, a specific example that sort of close and relevant to me is coordination. So, the traditional workflow for coordination is that we have a Navisworks power user who will receive via a whole bunch of different mechanisms the content from trade partners, designers. They will then pull that content into Navisworks. They will run their clash tests in Navisworks and find the clashes, and then they will manage the distribution of those clashes to team members and rinse and repeat that cycle every week or every 2 weeks. So what we're now seeing is people are, to your earlier point, people are no longer concerned about sharing their data in the cloud. They absolutely were going back a number of years, and security and all these concerns. People aren't anymore. People are happy to share their data via a CDE. So we now have those teams, those trade partners, designers pushing their data up into the CDE, and because we have that information in our cloud, we can start to undertake a whole bunch of automation. So what we are doing is we are automating the aggregation. We are automating the process of pulling together architect, engineer, civil engineers models into that multidiscipline project model. We're now automating the clash detection. So as well as pulling that data together, we're starting to find out where the geometric intersections are. And
Exactly.
no one has to kind of do anything to achieve that. All people are doing is sharing their data. We're also starting to automate change analysis. So when people are sharing their data, just by publishing to the system, we're going to find out what's changed, what's new relative to previous versions of that data. So we're starting to automate and sort of explore that data just through publishing it to the system. What we can then start to do is make use of the output of that analysis. So we can then start to surface the results of that clash test. If the structural engineer publishes a model, generates a bunch of problems with the cladding, let's say, then the system is going to find that, and we can tell the architect and we can tell the engineer that a problem has been caused by the latest publish from that engineer. We can identify what's changed as new steel fabrication details are published, and we can tell other project team members that maybe there's an increase in weight or some impact resulting from that change. And again, these are activities that are typically traditionally undertaken by an individual, and that process tends to be asynchronous. So it's there's a delay as information is shared, and a delay as information is analysed and then sent back. We can start to make all of this real time, and as people are sharing information, we can identify problems and alert project team members to those issues. So that the one thing I would highlight there, some people can get a bit nervous about that, and it's the machine is going to take my job, and I would say that that's kind of not the case at all. And much of what we are starting to automate is activity that doesn't need skilled human intervention, but that there are certain things that absolutely do need skilled human intervention, and understanding constructability issues. You can't teach a machine that. That's what takes the years of the training and the skill and the experience. So what we can do is we can start to automate donkey work is quite the right word, but the sort of the less skilled activity, essentially, the things that just people are spending time on at the moment because they have to do it. We can start to automate that and sort of so free people up so that they have more time to spend on the areas that really do require skill and expertise. So to me, that's going to be one of the biggest trends is automation. I would highlight that one. Another area I would highlight would be connectedness. You'll have certainly heard Autodesk, particularly the Construction Solutions teams, talk about our connected platform, and referencing back to Glue. Glue is a great product, but the output of Glue was kind of contained within Glue. What we're looking to do is to provide a platform that really does connect project participants, project workflows in a far more seamless way. So the output of our design content creation tools, our Revit and our AutoCAD tools, that's being pushed up to the platform. We can start to, as I say, automate a whole bunch of processes. And then that platform provides the framework for different team members to collaborate, to share information, to use our issues tools, to work together to resolve issues. Once information is ready for further sharing, once it's ready for publishing to the field or for quantification or estimating activities, you don't then need to take it and republish it into a different system or rebuild it in many cases today, actually rebuild data for a different workflow. It's all there available in the same platform, and you can use our quantification tools, you can use our planning tools, you can use our installation site-based tracking tools, all within the same connected platform. So yeah, connected workflows and connected project persona will be another big area of transformation, I think, over the next 5 years.
That's actually fantastic and interesting. You use the example of structural steel because, not giving away too much, but that's what my AU class this year is about. Taking the structural steel example and basically structural industry and sharing the data, automating some of that stuff. So yeah, you've pretty much mentioned that. We are almost out of time, so now I need to jump on to my favorite section of this podcast, where I'm going to ask you to tell us 2 jokes and give us a tip.
Okay. Yesterday I saw a guy spill all his Scrabble letters onto the road. I asked him, "What's the word on the street?" How about that one? I say that one because I was playing Scrabble with my son yesterday, and
Oh, is it?
that one came up.
Okay, that's actually a cool one. So what did your son say?
He just kind of looked at me blankly. I had to explain to him what word on the street meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last one. Did you hear about the claustrophobic astronaut? He just needed a little space.
He needed a little space, obviously. Yep. So now tell us give us a tip.
Yeah, I guess my tip would be, it's a little bit serious, but I would say sort of don't be constrained by what people expect and anticipate you would do. And if a path is laid out for you that you don't feel is the right one, then forge your own one. That would be
That's
my
actually
tip.
really good.
The reason I say that is, the reason I say that is because my path was kind of laid out to be an architect, and I trained as an architect and spent a long time, 7 years in gearing up and all the rest of it, and I just decided this is just not me. I just do not respond to this. But the natural thing would have been to continue down that path, and there's a lot of expectation, and so I just felt I had to get out, despite all of my peers, my people I trained with, architecture, my family. What are you doing? What are you doing? But yeah, to me that was the best decision I made, and that required me to just I'd say follow my own path. So that would be my tip.
So follow your passion.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's such a brilliant tip. So we are almost out of time. I again want to take this opportunity to thank you. I had a lot of fun chatting with you, and I even came to know something new about you after 13 years of knowing you.
Absolutely.
So that's brilliant. Again, thank you for joining us on this podcast.
Pleasure, Deepak. Thanks for the opportunity.
So we had a chat with Richard Parker, who's the Director of Product Management at Autodesk. We talked about a lot of different things, about his passion, about his family, and what he does outside his work. But there are a couple of things that I really want to reiterate here that he mentioned is, if we look at the construction industry, the future of construction industry, he mentioned that automation and interconnectivity is going to be the future where he sees the industry going. Automation, he took an example of automating clash detection or even automating change analysis, which is some of these tedious tasks that we can automate and basically free our time to do some other important things. The life tip that Richard gave was follow your passion and make your own path rather than following the path that is laid out to you, which is absolutely fantastic. So again, Richard, I really appreciate your time. I know you're really, really busy. So thank you for joining us on this podcast.
Pleasure. Thanks very much, Deepak. Good to chat with you, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you.